I see this hand reaching into her bag and a set of fingers go in there, and I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bam! When I watch these guys day in, day out stealing stuff from these elderly people, it broke my heart. Like, I would feel so bad for these people. And I seen them get on the bus this one day, and that was it. I told the bus driver, I said, there's a couple of guys, I see them every day pickpocketing, and they're now on the bus. Can you make an announcement? I hear a woman scream, you hear, ah! And a woman screams and she goes, they got my stuff! But this time, I wasn't gonna let him do it. I went after them. Then all of a sudden he stops and I go, uh-oh. He turns around and now he's heading for me.
There is an unwritten code in Brooklyn. You don't tell anyone else's stories, and you don't talk about anyone else's business. Every story I tell is mine. Locations, names, and specific details have all been changed to honor that code. This is Brooklyn Files, the real stories.
New York is America's largest city, but at 400 years old, it's also one of America's oldest cities. And some of the ways that New York City shows its age, as odd as this sounds, is through its architecture, its landmarks, its infrastructure, and believe it or not, even its crimes. And one of those crimes dates back to the start of organized civilization. As a matter of fact, some say this crime dates back to the early 1500s, and that's pickpocketing. Around 3,000 pickpocketing incidents are reported every single month in New York City, so it's still very prevalent to this day. And it's also one of those crimes that's easier to commit in a crowded city like New York. I mean, you can't really pull off pickpocketing out in the country where the population is a little more sparse. You need crowds of people to be close together, high concentration in one place to be able to properly pull off pickpocketing. So you end up witnessing plenty of pickpocketing growing up in New York City like I did, especially in Brooklyn. And that's what this story's about. So when I was small, I actually witnessed my own mother being pickpocketed, and the way that experience played out would forever traumatize me in ways that I could never imagine at the time, but it had lasting effects, which I only saw years later. So the initial incident was in 1978. I was about 9 years old, and we're at the mall in our neighborhood. It's a mall just down the street from where we were living. And we're there, and we're in the ice cream shop, and we're doing what every family does in a mall ice cream shop. We're selecting our flavors and, you know, oohing and aahing and looking at the different options and so forth, and we're pretty occupied with that. I'm standing there, and again, I'm 9 years old, so I come up, maybe my head comes up to my mom's handbag that's around her shoulder, and in my peripheral vision, I could see a hand and some fingers going into my mom's handbag. And as a 9-year-old, I was in shock. I remember, like, my initial reaction was, I saw it, but I didn't know what to do. I was just like I froze. And then I started tugging my mom's handbag, and as I'm tugging her handbag, and as I'm starting to try to say something to her, I'm like hitting her arm, and then out of nowhere, bam! So it's 1978, I'm 9 years old, we're in the neighborhood ice cream shop inside the mall, and we're doing what every family does, we're picking out our flavors, and I'm a small kid, so my head comes up to maybe my mom's elbow or whatever, you know, her handbag, and I see this hand reaching into her bag, and a set of fingers go in there, and I was in shock, I didn't know what to do. And so I think my first reaction was to just like tug on her handbag, like, you know, that's what kids do, right? when you're trying to get your mom's attention. Like I'm hitting her in the arm, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bam, I get closed fist punched in the back of my head as hard as you could possibly imagine. I mean, this must have rattled my brain inside my head because I was in absolute shock. And I had a welt on the back of my head. I think a few people standing around were like, whoa, like what was that? Like people were looking around because they heard this noise, and my mom suddenly realized that this woman had just been trying to pickpocket her, but she also punched her kid. Imagine how you'd feel if somebody just punched your 9-year-old kid in the head. I mean, you'd want to kill him, right? So my mom, all of a sudden, she's freaking out. She's like, what did you do? Did you just hit my kid? You bleedo, this and that, you. And she's screaming her head off. She's cursing at this woman. And the woman just bolts. And now, with every pickpocketing incident, there's always like the person who does the actual pickpocketing, and then there's the people that are like the lookouts. You know what I mean? So not only does this woman run, but like I think there was a man and another woman, so it was like 3 people in total. The 3 of them bolt. Then my mom starts like chasing them, but she didn't want to leave me standing there with my brother. So I think my mom's boyfriend at the time, he starts chasing him, and it was just this whole big crazy debacle. I didn't realize how profoundly that incident had affected me and even my reaction to being in a similar situation. So fast forward to when I'm about 16 years old, it's 1985, and I'm a freshman in high school. In the afternoon when class let out, me and 1,000 other kids would all run to the bus stop, which was near the school, near the high school, and we would take the city bus. And I had to take a couple of different buses and transfer. We'd wait on the bus stop on the second stop, and this is when I started seeing something every day. It was this group of guys. It was 2 to 3 guys every day, the same guys, and they would always be waiting on that second bus stop, not the first bus, because that was filled with students. The second bus was the one we would transfer to, and that would have all the elderly people. It's the middle of the day, and all the elderly people are coming from their doctor's appointments or whatever, or businessmen, businesswomen, what have you, on their lunch breaks, again, 3 o'clock or so in the afternoon. So you got a busload of adults and students. And so there's enough people on this bus to be the perfect environment for a pickpocketer to get away with his crime or her crime. And so every day I'd see this group of guys. Now I didn't know at first what they were doing or who they were, but eventually I'd start to catch on. Now here's where I realized that incident when I was 9 years old had a profound effect on me. I would get on the bus and I would see these guys. Again, they would always travel in 2 and 3s, and they always carried dry cleaning. And it was so weird. It was like, that's what got on my radar at first. I'm like, why are these guys carrying dry cleaning every single day when I see them? And so these guys are like, early 30s and whatever, mixed races. And so they would get on the bus and they'd have the dry cleaning. And then I would witness this. I would watch them. One guy would hold the dry cleaning as a shield, and the other guy would take his hand and he'd get in the guy's wallet. Now, here's where I realized that I was affected by that incident that happened when I was 9 years old. When I would see this pickpocketing happening on the bus, my heart would be racing. I would get what probably was a miniature panic attack watching this all go down. And I would feel bad, but I would be frozen. I literally froze. Like I couldn't do anything about it. I think because I was probably in some way, without realizing it, traumatized by getting smacked in the head by this woman. When I watched these guys day in, day out, stealing stuff from these elderly people, it broke my heart. Like I would feel so bad for these people. Because like in many cases, you're looking at like an old man, he's wearing his slacks and he's wearing a nice shirt. He's got his wallet in his back pocket. First mistake right there, by the way. Don't ever do that. And I'd see these guys sticking their fingers in, and sometimes they'd make off with that or other stuff. But I always felt guilty that I froze out of fear, out of traumatization, and I would never react to it till one day. One day I just decided that I got sick of watching these thieves steal from these innocent people that probably worked hard their whole lives, and now they're taking their stuff, their hard-earned stuff, from them without their knowledge. And then these poor people get home and find out their wallet's gone, or the money they had in their pocket is now completely gone. I felt terrible for these people. This one day I got completely sick of seeing it, and I said, that's it, I'm gonna do something. And I seen them get on the bus this one day, and that was it. I told the bus driver, I said, there's a couple of guys, I see them every day pickpocketing, and they're now on the bus. Can you make an announcement? So the bus driver said, yeah, sure. If you're sure they're on the bus. I said, I'm sure they're on the bus. So he grabs the microphone and he says, attention everybody, it's been brought to my attention that there are a couple of pickpockets on this bus. So just be careful, watch your wallets, and just watch your belongings and that sort of thing. You start to hear people on the bus go, ooh, oh, like that kind of thing. When all of a sudden, the very next stop, I hear a woman scream, you hear, ah! And a woman screams and she goes, they got my stuff! And the bus stops, the doors open, and these three guys all bolt off the bus. But this time, I wasn't gonna let them do it. I went after them. So the bus driver announces to everybody on the bus that there's pickpockets, just to warn them. He says, everybody just watch your belongings. We got a couple of pickpockets on the bus. And not too short after he says that, makes this announcement, he pulls over at the next stop, and as he's pulling over at the next stop, you hear this woman scream from the back of the bus. She goes, ah! She goes, they got my stuff! They got my stuff! Stop them! And both doors of the bus now open up to let the passengers off and on. So the front door opens, the back door opens, and you hear the door fly open. You see these three guys bolting, and this woman is like beside herself. She's shaking. She says, they got my wallet! I had it. I saw my last victim get victimized, and I said, I'm gonna do something about it. So I see these guys run. I push through the crowd now. So I make my way off the bus. I start running down the avenue. So all three guys go in different directions, but I'm like focused on this one guy because he's really hightailing it. And he's stuffing his pockets or whatever. Like he looks like he's probably the guy that got her wallet. I know it's stupid, but I was doing it anyway. I was just tired of watching these people be victims. So I'm on this guy's tail. He turns left into an alley. Now he's running down an alley, and I'm gaining on this guy. And as I'm gaining on this guy, I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna tackle him? Am I just gonna grab his, back pocket and hopefully whatever he has of that woman's is gonna come flying out? Is this guy gonna fight back? I'm thinking all these things, but I'm really just focused on catching this guy. So I'm running after this guy now. I leave my book bag on the bus. I don't even know what happened with that at that point. He gets down to the end of the alley. I'm on his tail, but he starts to lose me a little bit. Then all of a sudden he stops and I go, uh-oh. He turns around and now he's heading for me. I'm chasing this guy, he's losing me. I'm now trying to catch him, and I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this guy when I get him, but I'm gonna get him. I start to gain on this guy, but still, he's got a little ground on me. He suddenly stops at the end of the alley because the end of the alley, there was a fence and he had nowhere to go. He stops, turns around, and now he starts charging at me. Now he's running at me, and guess what? He now has a knife. And out of his pocket, he pulls a switchblade. Now this guy's got a knife, and he's running at me now. And I'm thinking, what the hell am I gonna do? I start retreating. I don't run the other way. I don't turn my back to this guy, but I start retreating, and all of a sudden, I hear a car driving up behind me, and I'm thinking, this better be the good guys and not the bad guys. And that's when all of a sudden, this guy stops in his tracks, and I hear out the window of the car, drop that knife or you're gonna be shot. Drop the knife or we're gonna shoot you. Drop the knife. I turn around, these undercover cops are behind me in the alley with an unmarked car, and they got their guns drawn at the guy, because don't forget, this guy had a knife and he's charging at me. They say, get on the ground, put your hands behind your back and lay down. And I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, at some point I'm thinking, they're not talking to me, are they? So I turn around, they got the guns drawn. I back off like this slowly, like I'm a good guy. I was chasing him. And this guy's on the floor. I could tell by the body language and the way they looked at me. They said, you can move over to the side, just get out of the way. And I did that, and I gladly got out of the way. And then they proceeded to approach the guy, and they started to arrest him. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to press any charges in any way because I wasn't the victim, nor did I actually witness the crime. I just ran after the guys that were running away. But I did hear later on that the woman pressed charges. She did get her stuff back, and they did end up catching the other guys because apparently once those pickpockets ran off the bus and that woman started screaming and I started chasing them, the bus driver got on his two-way radio and he radioed back to dispatch and told them that he needed police officers in that area because there was a pickpocket situation. So he was a fast-acting bus driver, and I guess you could say I was pretty fast-acting, but pretty stupid because that could have ended really, really, really differently. And thank God the cops arrived when they did because that could have had a whole different outcome. Thank God it didn't. But I'll never forget that day. That was incredible.